but as far as my testimony, man, you know, I've been rocking with God, man. I've been in this thing since I was like 4 or 5, 6 years old, man. My mom and dad had got married. And my dad's African, my mom's African American, of course, but my dad is Nigerian. And my dad married my mom for American citizenship. I didn't figure this out until 3 years ago. But my dad and mom divorced, and so it was me and my mom since I was very little. My dad was very good man. I mean, we had some struggles because what a young man is going to know. Young man knows that his dad ain't there passing him the basketball. So you build some resentment towards your father because you're like, man, where is that? I have a missing void. But I was so glad that my dad was removed because there's a lot of things, even with the Nigerian culture, that if my dad was in my life would have been a burden. It would have been instilled in me, and it would have been a hindrance. That's why don't get mad when God removes things out of your life because when he removes things out of your life, he knows that thing can have a heavy influence on you, keeping you from fulfilling God's purpose. So some of us were born without dads, without moms, in foster homes. We was born in certain situations, not because God hated us, but because God so loved us that he wanted us to go through, yes, a tougher patch, but that tough patch was going to make us strong. That's why I rather have gone through pain than privilege. I thank God for having a hellish, painful life. Everything was a struggle because, man, I can chew life, I can stomach life, and I can expose life. I can enjoy it. I can go through it without skipping a beat because I know struggle. You got a lot of people who's privileged and has been through prosperous situations and they can't stomach adversity. I'm glad I went through adverse conditions because it made me. So when I was 4 years old, man, my mom said she was smoking a cigarette. My mom was a smoker back then. And she said, I looked across the room and looked at her, and she had this conviction, and she said she started crying, and she stopped smoking that day and went to church that Sunday. And ever since then, she's been going to church and following God from that Sunday. But then when I was 5 or 6 or 7 years old, the church that I went to at the time, the pastor began to bring me in, and I was, reading the scriptures. I would pray for people. I remember when I was 7 or 8 years old, the pastor called me up to heal somebody, pray for somebody, and the lady's headache left. I mean, I know the lady. You can even message her, like the Bible days. Go ask, what's her name? She's still alive. So I have evidence. She's still alive. You can ask her. And so ever since 7 or 8 years old, man, I was like, whoa. I'm weird. I mean, me and my mom, we grew up in very poor situations, man. I had high waters. Y'all know what high waters are. I had high waters, man. You saw my ashy. You didn't see ashy ankles. You saw some ashy shins. You know what I'm saying? That's how high my pants was. That you didn't just see ashy ankles. You saw ashiness on the bottom of my shin. I remember my mom. I had a pink book bag going to school. I was picked on all the time picked on. And I went to Paul Tucker Elementary School, and I just hated life, man. I was like, man, I'm praying on Sunday and getting picked on Monday, and it was crazy. But my mom had a conviction to put me in private school. And yeah, it was all right. It was all right, high waters. The crazy thing about it is my mom, in faith, put me in Christian school. And because God said, that's the way God wanted me. So I went to Cramerton Christian in middle, went to Victor Christian in high school. Now, mind you, I went from a public school into a predominantly white school. And the beautiful thing about my white experience, as far as going through a white school, was I experienced more love than I did racism. Now, of course, there were some people in there that just looked at me crazy because there was only like 5 black people in the whole school. But the Barker family, the Reed family, those families loved me. They took care of me. When my mom couldn't get me from basketball practice and I had to spend night at the Reeds family, they brought me in. I had bacon for the first time. I had Prego. I had spaghetti sauce for the first time. And I just thought spaghetti was, my mom brought the Heinz out the refrigerator, and I thought that's what spaghetti was made, that you just put ketchup on it with some ground beef in there. But I was introduced to Prego. I was introduced to a lot of things, and I was introduced to it wasn't flimsy. I'm talking about the bacon that was crispy and had such sweet savor to it. That bacon, right? So from that point, I played basketball. I was a singer back in the day. Oh Happy Day was a song I led in church when I was a young boy. I was a singer. My voice. And I was pretty good at that time. I was into music. I loved music, but I'm glad God allowed my mom to put a basketball in my hand, not a microphone in my hand, because if you know anything about certain black churches, that a lot of homosexuality is prominent. And I'm glad that God put a basketball in my hand instead of putting a mic in my hand. Nothing wrong with being a singer, but at that time, there were some situations where I'm so glad that I wasn't left alone with certain men, that I was amongst men that hooped, right? And so I played basketball, man. I said two people raised me with basketball, Pistol Pete Maravich and Hakeem Olajuwon. That describes my basketball game to the T. You know, my basketball game is a mixture of little Pete Maravich. I could pass better than anybody I know. I could get the ball there, and I got post moves like Hakeem Olajuwon. I got the bite of Jordan though. You know what I'm saying? Like, so Jordan raised me, Pistol Pete Maravich raised me, and Hakeem Olajuwon raised me. So that was my come on, Leia. Listen, your boy nice with it. I'm stocky now, but to lose his weight. But anyway, back to my story. Went to what's that school I went to? Cramerton. Great experience. Experienced some racism. I went to Asheville to play basketball one time, got called the N-word, beat this kid stuff off the glass. I was very athletic. I beat the stuff off the glass. The dad came down the aisle, said, went to the refs, how you gonna let this nigger foul my son? They had to grab me, pull me to the bench. They told me I couldn't go to the bathroom. So notice that I experienced love and racism. And then I went to a predominantly black school. I went to Victory Christian Center. I didn't know what giving head was until I was in 10th grade. I wasn't exposed to certain things that I got into Victory. I'm not saying Victory was a bad school. I'm just saying my mind, I was green. I'm talking about Coach was innocent. Coach was not touched by a woman. Coach didn't know what lips tasted like, touched like. I didn't even touch a woman. You know what I'm saying? Until I got to Victory. But when I got to Victory, my call began to get refined because Pastor Gould, who's my mentor at now, really God allowed me to go through Victory to get shaped, and that's when basketball began to die and preacher began to live. And Victory met some of my greatest friends there. And I learned a lot about what I need to do. It's crazy how Victory, I think the whole purpose of me going to Victory was to discover Oral Roberts University. I went to Oral Roberts University. Now, mind you, within that teenage years, I didn't want God. I wanted basketball. I ain't want God, yo. I wanted to, I'm African. If you know an African, you know they about that green. They about that money. They about building an empire. And I was an entrepreneur. My entrepreneurship classes in high school is what sparking me to do my charter school. And I was like, man, I'm going to get this money. and I didn't want to preach, man, because, you know, I was like, man, I had a stuttering problem back then. And I was like, anybody going to listen to me? But I always gave advice. I got yearbooks right now from Cramerton and Victory from people that wrote in my books, and it was like, thank you for the advice. Me and Jimmy are doing great. You know what I'm saying? And I was like giving advice to seniors when I was in 6th grade, because I went through a school that was K through 12. And it was crazy. I was like, I had wisdom back then, but I remember when my mom let me hear the story of Solomon. When she said, baby boy, the same God that gave Solomon all that wisdom, God wants to give. I said, at that day, I think I was 14. I said, God, I want to be wiser than Solomon. I want to be the wisest man of my generation. And time will tell if I'm that. I believe I'm that because the wisdom I receive is from a deep, dense relationship with God, that God trusts me with revelation. And so now I was wise from a young age, and God, I was giving advice, but there was no money in giving advice. There was no life coaches back then. So I was like, I'm just going to ball out, cuz I'm just going to ball out. And I went to Oral Roberts University, and now mind you, I went from a predominantly white school to a predominantly black school to one of the top 3 diverse schools in the country. You see how God set it up. I knew, and that what I know now gives me it allowed me to see correctly what God was doing. Don't get mad at God because you're going through, because God is setting the modules, the training experience that you need, so that when you're 30 years old and you look back, you be like, that's why God allows me to be all things to all men, I may win some. That's why that verse is my life verse, that God, I want to be your chameleon, God. I want to be all things to all men, I might win some. And so God said, you want to be that? So I got to bring you through all white school. I got to bring you through all black school, see the opposites, put you in the #1 diverse school, meet some South Americans, meet some Africans, meet some Asians, meet some poor blacks, meet some rich blacks, meet some churchy blacks, meet some hood, I don't give a flip about God blacks and whites, and meet all these people, so that when I commence my call, when I commence your purpose, you will have the resources. God has made me more like a Paul than a Peter. Peter was to the Jews. Nothing wrong if you're one-dimensional, but God needs some Swiss Army knife believers. He needs some Swiss Army knife believers that you're multifunctioning, multifaceted. So, Oral Roberts, 19 years old, God hit me in the face in my dorm room. Whop, whop, whop. And God was like, if you don't do this, what's going to happen to them? I broke down in tears in my dorm room. I mean, it was one of those cries where, I mean, probably people outside was like, because my window was open, they probably thought I was getting murdered in there or something like that. But I was crying because the presence of God was like, enough is enough. Enough is enough, Josh. It's time for you to go and do what I called you. Basketball dream died. I helped out with the basketball team at ORU, and I was trying to fight. And God was like, why are you trying to fight in places you don't fit? Why do y'all and us try to fight into places we don't fit? All right. And so what God gave me the revelation where he was like, Josh, preach my gospel creatively and contextually, meaning he didn't say all this. Now I'm just putting some C's in there, but he said, be creative, utilize your experiences to reach my people, but stay anchored in my word. I mean, I was going to blogs. I was in my Bible richly, and God brought me to his parables, and God was like, read parables. When I began to read parables, he began to give me wisdom, and that training that God put me through allows me to make the quotes that I make. I could put out quotes. I could configure things because he was like, I want you to be a storyteller. I want you to be an analogy, a giver. I want you to be creative in your speech. I want you to be able to look in any arena that if you see a flower, you can preach my gospel. When you look at a painting, you can preach my gospel. When you look at the ground and you find a piece of paper, you can preach my gospel. When you can be able to pull from every area and preach my gospel. And God puts us through training so that we can be diverse. And what happened is, I got serious. I said, forget school, yo. This ain't for me. And so I started this thing called Kingdom Eternity. I did bracelets, that says, why are you here? I was serious. I was one of those, you better get your life right or go to hell saints. I was one of those no grace saints. I was like, oh yeah, you better get your life right. And there's areas for that, but we have to have a balance. We can't just preach a love gospel without a wrath gospel. What I mean by that, a partial gospel doesn't save anyone. You need to show the love of God, and you got to show God's hatred towards sin. Get your life saints. There you go. That had to Get Your Life Saints ministry. Get your life and go and follow God, right? But I still had that pride, ego in me, that African in me, that I'm better than you, very competitive. That Jordan was coming out of me, right? Jordan was John, yeah, exactly. Like John, I was about to nail stuff on people's doors, talking about I got 95 get your life right quotes, saying get your life right or the school gonna burn down to the ground. I was that type of dude, right? But it was crazy. Through those experiences, God began to even kill. Now, mind you, in 2008, God allowed me to be a part of a ministry where we knocked on doors, and I'm a streets guy, man. I want my ministry to be 5% preaching and 95 in these streets ministry. Like I want to be able to preach the gospel, but I want my life and action and deed to preach the gospel, right? And so what happened was, I began to jump into ministry. I bought t-shirts, I bought bracelets, I bought wristbands. You go to my Facebook, I got photo albums of them. I was out here hustling. I was a hustler. And instead of being a hustler of hope, I was a hustler of product. And I got so consumed with that when I had my first concert, God was leading me, but I was caught up in hustling. But when I did my first concert, man, we was able, you can watch the videos on my website and the pictures, we was able to bust in over 100 kids in Tulsa's North Side. And there's a video of me preaching to the kids. And at that moment, like I preached when I was a kid, a teenager, but when I was on that stage, I was nervous. I was anorexic. I lost a bunch of weight. But when I got on that stage, I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. Kids, young adults, young professionals, everybody was in the room, blacks, whites, poor, rich. And I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And we had over 300 people there. I don't know, I can't remember the numbers. I don't want to over exaggerate, but we had 100 kids there. And it's crazy how God allowed me to do something where we bust the kids in. And now we have a program now in a public school. And now we're going towards developing our own charter school. And it's crazy, but God removed it quick. Bam, 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 was gone. And that fall, I did another concert. But after that, I was in a relationship with a girl. Girl left, lost my job. God stripped everything. And I was left alone in my mom's house. And God was like, write a book. And I was like, write a book? Man, I got D's and F's, my dude. D's and F's. God, you want to go find someone with A's and B's, Lord. You don't want to use an F student. But God said, I usually allow your inadequacies to be the main thing that I use. Usually the devil messes with you in the areas where you're supposed to dominate. So God was like, write this book. And it was called The Blueprint, but that was around the time that Jay-Z was coming up with The Blueprint. So I was like, you know what? I don't want no people thinking this is a blueprint. But so I was watching Lauryn Hill's Unplugged, and her music in that moved me, that Unplugged stuck out. And from there, man, I was like, it just spilled out of me. Like, you ever had that moment with God where it's creative and God is flowing and you start regurgitating and it's like the Holy Spirit is speaking out of you? That's why I always carry a pen and a pad or a recorder with you, because you never know when God is going to spew out of you what you need to hear. And at that moment, man, I was like, wow, God, like, write a book. So I wrote the book Unplugged in 2008, 2009. And God was like, don't just do a book, I want you to do videos. And I was like, videos? Ain't nobody gonna want to see me. Mind you, I was embarrassed because I couldn't get back into school. I was embarrassed because what that girl did to me. I was embarrassed because people was expecting me to bring that Amped concert back. And God killed Kingdom Eternal. He killed Amped, and he burst Unplugged. God will always kill the ministry you name, but always give life to ministry that he conceives through you. And from that moment, man, I pursued God heavy, man. You might be smarter than me, but you won't outwork me. That's my motto. You're not going to outwork me. And next thing you know, 600 videos later, 270 workshops later, 3 books with a 4th book coming out this year. You can't go back. I can't go back. So now Unplugged launched October 30th, 2010. We've been going since 2010. Right now we're in a public school with a mentoring program right now, on our way to start our charter school with 5-7 year plan, however long God wants. But I want to encourage you guys, it don't matter where you start. Help God, let God help you finish. And do not allow inadequacies to cause you to be inactive. Keep going. And I hope this testimony blessed you. I wasn't always perfect. I had a lot of sins in my life. Prideful sins, porn addictions, lustful stuff. I had a lot of stuff in my life. But the love of God compels me not to do those things anymore. It's the love of God, the grace of God that compels me. You can do all these things, but without a loving, thriving relationship with God, those things mean nothing. And one of my scariest moments was in halfway through those 8 years is when I was in myself more. And God, I felt God's endorsement leave me. And when I felt God's endorsement leave me, there's nothing scares me more than feeling separated from God, because God has saved us, but he doesn't endorse our sins that we habitually do. And so now I'm passionate more than ever. I'm more in love with God. And now my story makes sense, and I feel like I'm the greatest at what I do, not because of anybody else, but I just feel like greater is he that's in me, and I'm going to do great things. And I told myself I want to be the best to do it since God did it, and I want to be the best to do it since Jesus did it. And if it happens, we'll see. The God is to write a narrative, but will I be the wisest in my generation? I believe I am now, but we'll see. But I'm so honored that God would trust me with such treasures, and I can't hold this treasure, and so I have to give it out. That's my testimony, guys. It's getting late. I love you. I hope it was a blessing to you. If you want to support Unplugged and Propel, please go to iamunplugged.com. You can support us there. We propel.education. You can help us get this movement out. We're going to be releasing information soon about our charter school. That's what's on my heart, and we got a lot of great plans with these kids. If you want to support, help us, please help us get us out there. Share this message. It was a blessing. I hope it was. I love you guys. Till next time, keep pursuing God. Stay in love with him, and everything. Even if you lose everything, know that you still have everything if you have God. Love y'all. Peace.